much more. Not to forget Todd Murphy as well, who will showcase a little CDC exclusive, an article that is right now available on our web page, and you guys can check it out. Before we get started, of course, subscribe to the channel. And this is what I was referring to: Todd Murphy's wild journey from medium pace to Lions understudy. It was written from great insights as they found him at the MRF Pace Academy. Our two writers in Anirudh and Akash. And this was a while ago, but you guys can get a little bit of insight of what Todd Murphy's mentality is. Todd Murphy's Murphy. I've literally been messing my words up purely because the Test cricket is back on, and the fever that's captivated all of us has truly been there to see. Now, without further ado, as you guys can see the score, we'll just, before we get Nick on, we'll just tell you exactly how the days unfolded if you guys missed it by any chance. India, remember, were trailing by 100 at stumps on day one, but today, as you can see, 321 for 7, and it's an important partnership which is still going on. An 81-run stand between Akshar Patel and Ravindra Jadeja. Akshar Patel getting his second Test 50, first after marriage, like Sanjay Manjrekar said on comms. But jokes apart, though, it's been fun from an Indian perspective. Not so much if you're a Virat Kohli fan, as you can see, a little bit of somberness as well. But look, enough of me. We'll get the guys on board right now, and we'll get Nick and Anirudh, who's, of course, our stats man, our fantasy expert, but they're much more than that, guys. Let me start with Nick's here, because I know Anirudh has so much to tell me in terms of numbers and more. Nick, I saw your tweet about Rohit Sharma, class is class yard and all of that. But how do you sum up that 120? Do you rate it as Rohit's best Test knock, or is that pushing it?
I think you can. I think the 160 that he hit is still the one that takes the cake. I think that was absolutely magnificent. This one also stands out because you see, it's only been arguably the two left-handers who were supposed to be troubled and not being able to go past single digits, and they have scored 250s. So it just tells you how much. I think this thing that stands out for Rohit in this knock is the control that he had. It very few times you saw Rohit being troubled or caught out by something that's happening around him. So always very confident. And it is something that I often gauge batters with when they bat in the subcontinent. It's when they defend, how big the bat looks. And every time Rohit was pushing and just doing tuck, it would make a very good sound. And that would just tell you how in a zone is something that they often talk with Rohit. How into the zone that he was, all the time. And he could do anything that he wanted. Even the one that he got his century with, it was slight, you say, miscalculation or whatever, but he still got it up in the gap and got that done. First as captain, first versus Australia. Yeah, I think he had a absolutely perfect day.
Absolutely. And in terms of that stroke that you mentioned there, Nick, the fact that it was pretty ballsy for him to kind of walk down nonchalantly and kind of play inside out, it tells you a little bit more about the man. It also tells you that perhaps he was batting on a different surface altogether. Is it fair to say that?
I think he's shown that quite a bit in the past as well. Again, something like a few previous openers have also done. When nobody else is working, there's this one man who makes you feel that he's batting on an entirely different surface. But I think to his credit, it was just the clear mindset that, okay, this is what I'm going to do. This is where I'm going to bowl and bat, where I'm going to bat. And this is the bowler that I'll even look to, play out in a certain way. So I think the clarity was something that you would visually see in the kind of shots that he played, not so much in the other batters. And Pujara was consumed by the intent. So let's just get that out of the way, because I know we'll talk about Kohli a lot more.
Yeah, I know we'll talk about Kohli a lot more. Right, Anina, talk to me about Rohit Sharma and what that 120 meant in terms of the record books and the stats and numbers, because I was going through all the stats that you normally put out and the great stats man that you are, and you were telling me some numbers about Rohit in terms of spin since 2020. He's averaging 47. He's perhaps one of the best batters that we have right now, arguably the best. Talk to me about a fantastic day for Rohit Sharma, Anirudh. You're on mute again.
I don't know how it went into mute again. So, first of all, he became the first Indian captain to hit century across all formats, and the fourth overall as well. And apart from that, if you look into the game, Rohit had the control percentage, yes, but still, the pitch was not as it was. Like everybody were saying, oh, it's gonna turn, it's gonna bounce, it's gonna do something, it's gonna spit out. No, and if you see, even KL Rahul lost his wicket to a fairly full ball, which is a scoring opportunity, which was a scoring opportunity. He should have done it better. And Apart from Rohit Sharma's dismissal itself, no other balls were dismissed. I mean, like no other balls deserved a wicket. Even Pujara's wicket was not a deserving wicket, or Kohli's wicket wasn't a deserving one. So, I mean, like you can say this that this was a better opportunity, especially with only four bowlers. Probably, I can say only two bowlers for Australia. When Pat Cummins wasn't that great, wasn't that effective, or Lyon wasn't that great effective. It was just Murphy and Scott Boland who were troubling them. So it should have been a match where okay, fine, these guys, the other guys should have stepped in. But apart from that, yes, nothing to take out of Rohit Sharma's innings. That was a fantastic innings.
Yeah, a fantastic innings indeed, and I'm sure he would have broken some sort of records. But look, at the end of the day, Australia's bowling also looked pretty weak, and I'll come to Nick's right now with regards to that. I mean, Todd Murphy was their only silver lining, if we could say, a fifer, and we know who the other man who got a fifer in terms of the Aussies way back in the day. We'll let you guys guess and let us know in the comments below. Before all of that, by the way, subscribe to the YouTube channel because it's definitely worth it. 100%. We're nearing 19K. We're going to go to 20K probably at some point in time this year, but it's for you guys to get involved and make your presence felt. Now, someone who made his presence felt was Todd Murphy, Nicks. What did he do differently from the other bowlers? Because Lyon bowled, I think, 36, 37 overs. Murphy as well. I think this is the most he's ever bowled in his entire career, but he would have relished, especially with those wickets that he got, right?
Yeah, I think it was to begin with. I felt Murphy was always much more in the rhythm as a bowler. I felt again
Yeah.
you don't see too much of line difference in where Lyon and Murphy bowled. I think Lyon probably went away from what he usually does. Hayden wanted him to go over the wicket and use a lot of overspin and get more bounce, but this was not helping the bounce as much, and the ball was actually keeping a bit low. So again, the stump to stump line was understandable. And I'll also say Murphy was helped, as Anirudh rightly said, by a couple of very off shots, which you don't quite see. So like the first day you saw Cummins and Lyon bowl like that, and the second day you've seen Pujara get out to sweep. I don't know how many times in my life I'm going to say that. And then Kohli was just I mean, it was just a nothing dismissal. So he was definitely benefited. Ashwin's dismissal was a good ball, I felt, because again, he was bowling in line, did beat Ashwin, and which is what got him the wicket. So I think it was just doing the basics right. Cummins, as we talked about yesterday, just looked much more in rhythm today as compared to yesterday. He was probably trying a bit too much. He was bowling scrambled seam in with the new ball yesterday. So maybe just more clear in plans in terms of how they wanted to attack. And happy that I mean India have made it parampara and all of that, to give wickets to debutants. You can't do anything about it.
Indeed. No, absolutely. I mean, lots of guys in the comments are going mad, and as always, they're kind of hopping praise and being critiques. I mean, love that. Hello to Gary. Hello to Greg. Hello to Subodh as well, and not to forget Chachan. Now, Akash, who's our dear friend at CDC, will take his comment because he said, Abnish, remember how I said Rohit is one of India's X Factor in the previous show? Man really is playing like he's possessed. Now, Anirudh, we saw Akash, beg your pardon, not Akash. We saw Rohit Sharma score that 100 in Chennai against England. What were the similarities and dissimilarities in terms of numbers and intent? Was it like for like, in your opinion, Anirudh?
I don't think so because in the Chennai match, if you remember, like they had better spinners. I felt even in this one, like they had Joe Root who had picked up a 5 wicket before, and then not 5 wicket before, but they had Joe Root, Dom Bess, and Jack Leach, and all. And most of the overs were bowled by spin, and which like in that inning, I guess Rohit's intent was to sweep more. And if you look into that match, like he'd had much more turn than what it had today. So
Yeah.
like obviously, and he had the liberty to play on the front foot in this match. So he could have done that, and because it was turning in Chennai, he swept a lot. So that is how he got his runs over there. But over here, it was just a conventional innings where, okay, fine, you just need to wait for the loose ball. Obviously, like every bowler cannot bowl out of 18 balls, he has to bowl at least around four loose balls, and he was capitalizing on that. And I still feel that as compared to Chennai's innings, this was a better innings.
think we've lost him for a second. We'll
Okay.
get. Okay, yeah, he's back.
Yeah.
But Anirudh, I mean, you make some good points in terms of comparing both those knocks. But I want to ask Nick's this, right? India's success at home in tests have solely been with their low order contributions, and we saw it again today. I know Ashwin was propelled as a night watchman, and we saw what Jadeja and Akshar did with the bat. Is that why they've turned out to be this machine at home? Because if it's not Jadeja, it's Ashwin. If it's not Ashwin, it's Akshar. Sometimes it's all three, like we saw today on day two.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how many teams in the world can have three bowlers who can, on their day, of course, they won't always take 10, but they could take five overs and just contribute so well with the bat. And it's not that they've been slogging or they've been trying to hit boundaries. They've batted with control in very firm way. In that, okay, I mean, look at Aksar Patel. He started very slow. He was like what in single digits after 30, 40 balls. But he knew that there was enough time. I think something that is often lost when teams lose like 6, 7 wickets is they try to be too much, too lot more aggressive with their shot making. But both Jadeja and Aksar were content that okay, no, we don't need to do that. There is enough time left, and I think it's that waiting game because only in the third session is when we saw the short balls coming from the spinners. Before that, Murphy was not, owing that much. Lyon did, but Murphy didn't. So he got the short balls, then he got the drive balls as well, and then he hit a lot of boundaries to just make up for that, amount of time that he spent at the wicket. So I think a lot of times we've wished in the past that India needed to have an all-rounders like that, and to have these three batting at 6, 7, it is a massive luxury. And I think just to point out, I think whenever the transition happens, Akshar Patel will be very crucial because you need somebody to be ready in that kind of mold that you want. Once Jadeja and Ashwin are out of the system.
Yeah, man. India are blessed. I mean, you look at Jadeja and how he's been batting since 2018. His numbers are as good as any top four, top five in the world. And Ashwin, of
Yeah.
course, been brilliant as well. Go on, Anirudh. Sorry.
Yeah, I mentioned in one of our quick bites as well. So since 2019, so Jadeja has scored over 1,100 runs at an average of 52, batting six or lower. That is like that's crazy. That's like you can't expect anything more from your lower order batsman. He averages 50 with the bat, and he has an average of 27 with the ball. That's like a blessing in disguise to any team.
Yeah, and just to
No.
add to that, those
Yeah,
conditions they haven't always been batting friendly. Those
exactly.
have
Yeah.
been tough conditions across the world, and I mean, it just shows the class that all. I mean, for a lot of time, it was a running joke that how does this man has three triple tons? Now we know how.
Yeah,
Now we
now
know
we
that.
know that.
And plus, like the other stat that the broadcaster showed at the end of the day's play is the fact that Jadeja has this knack of scoring 50s, especially when he gets fifers as well in the same match. He's done it now on 6 occasions since 2020, and it just
I will
proves
stop.
his worth as
I
one
will
of the best
stop you
all-rounders.
there. Before the broadcasters, we had put it up. You can go and check that.
Super, super. I mean, I like the way you guys plug in the show anyway. Let's take some of the comments right now before we get cracking with all the questions which is coming through. Majority on Virat Kohli, of course, and how his susceptibility to spin has been there. Eddie Stark going on to say useless curators can't even doctor pitch properly. Sahil Nagdev saying Jadeja Akshar scored more than KL, Rahul, Sky, Kohli, and other four were playing as pure batter roles. I mean, the way fans dissect the game is so great. That's why we'd like to have you guys involved in the comments below. Chennai's innings better, but spinners were better in this match. So Sahil kind of having a different view than Anirudh. Let's take Chachan's question and share it with the panel right now. We answered this question, I think the exact same one in the preview before the series started, gentlemen. How do we kind of deal with these two? Because they've been India's finest test batsmen in the last 5, 6 years. So there is an element of respect. There's always going to be an element of reputation when we're picking players in our country. But do you think Virat Kohli, we'll start with Virat Kohli. Do you think Virat Kohli, is it just a combination of luck, poor test form? What is it? Because Ani, you were showing the stats earlier, back foot play, front foot play. Which is
Yeah.
worse? I mean, back foot looks baffling, but front foot too, it's not good numbers if you're a Virat Kohli fan.
I mean, see, like even if you're the thing in when you're playing in India or in Asia, so basically as a batsman, your record generally will be good against back foot because
Yeah.
most of the time you have the time and you are better in picking the length and you go back to it because you get the time. if you are playing on the front foot, there is more chances of you getting an edge, or if it straightens, you won't have the time to adjust for it. So all these conditions come into front when you're playing on the front foot. So I don't know like how I mean like either one thing, I don't remember who, but somebody said it before the match. Kohli's one of the worst part about Kohli's batting now is he has forgotten how to pick the length of the spinner. He doesn't know like on to which length he wants to go back, or on which length he wants to play it on the front foot. I don't think he's getting confused in that, which is not which we haven't seen for a long time.
Correct. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of puzzling because here's a man who's dominated Test cricket with arguably one or two strokes, the flick and the cover drive. And we guys showed you on the cricket.com Twitter page about Virat Kohli's runs in terms of stroke wise. So you guys can check that out. Next, I want to ask you about Kohli as well. And before that, I'll take Gurkirat's comment. I don't know where he is. He's late to the show, but he's still commenting, which is always good to see, Paji. Every comment and Virat is a dagger through Avnish's heart. Cheeky. Wait for you to come on the show before I really pick the bones out of Virat more. But jokes apart, though, what is it with Virat Kohli? Because he played two sublime shots, perhaps the ones of the day. But jokes apart, how does he sort this mess out, especially in the longest format, arguably the one that he loves the most as well?
Yeah, I mean, I found the knock very twitchy as well, given the success that he had in the ODIs. Now, I'm not saying both are same formats. Of course, they are not, and you don't play the same way, but you have time. I think in T20s, it is still understandable that if you have issues striking at a very good rate, then it is understandable. In ODIs, he's coming off a decent run where he did not look too troubled, or he looked in more control. So I think today was a bit surprising, right? As you rightly said, whenever it was too full, he was very happy to come down and just hit straight. So now I don't know if you can attribute it again to luck that post a break, just like before you are into that zone, he just picked up a very, I mean, it's not even a terrible, there is no word that can describe how horrible that dismissal was for him. So I think he for sure will be gutted. I think just like he did in that Afghanistan century, I think if it was, I think he just needs like 50, 100 balls in test match.
Yeah.
I don't think he needs anything else. Just get there. Again, silly example, like the Aksar Patel route, like 50 ball, 4, 5, no problem at all. Just get in there, get a hang of it, and he'll find a way. It's not that now he's somebody who can't just forget to score runs. I mean,
Yeah.
he's done that for a living for enough time now, over a decade. So it's just about getting into that zone where he just starts to do everything, just comes naturally to him after a period of time, maybe. So maybe he needs that time, a good session out in the middle, just bat. There is no hurry. I think this was the perfect opportunity, decent batting conditions as well. And I, after those two boundaries, you felt that okay, it's starting to look good,
Yeah.
but the break I think just spoiled the concentration for him.
Yeah, I mean, I was getting ready because look, it was Rohit and Kohli to resume batting on lunch, and I literally was running up the stairs with my coffee in my hand, and then the first ball, and I'm like, "You're joking! This can't possibly happen." But look, Anirudh's laughing right now, but someone's laughing at him in the comments, and Subodh Chavan going on to say, "Avnish bro, please ask that man in the orange shirt. He still pays money to watch KL Rahul bat, and is KL Rahul better batsman than Rohit Sharma?" Ani, tread carefully because I want you to answer this with all your heart and head, my friend.
Uh, to answer the first part, yes, if he is in full form, I would still pay money to watch KL Rahul bat any other batsman. Any other batsman, yes. For the first question, yes. But at currently, no, I don't think so. He's a better batsman than Rohit Sharma. I mean, like he, just like Kohli is stuck between like what to do. He even doesn't know like what he has to do between aggression and defense. So yeah, probably at the current time, Rohit is a better batter. I mean, not Rohit. Most of them are better batters than KL Rahul. No.
Okay. Fair enough. Ani, we really appreciate your time. Gurkirat's also waiting in the wings, and we'll say goodbye to you. But catch Ani in terms of all his stats, highlights at the end of each day's play on the website, and it's brilliant. Before we get Gurkirat on, it's a slight teaser for the Play the Odds feature on the cricket.com app. It is brilliant. If you guys really want to predict and beat the machine, you guys can do that right now. Here's what we mean. Shaunak, play the clip, please. Check out cricket.com's brand new feature on our app called Play the Odds. Test your cricket knowledge by making predictions on match events. Not just that, come back to check the results and see your earnings. Maintain your streak by playing on consecutive featured match days. If you think you can, of course, beat this, check out the rulebook to be assured by the formalities of this game. Anyway, check out this feature and we'll be back to the show right now. It's a slightly off video that, but we will get to it and we'll make a proper one in due course. But that's just for you guys to know that Play the Odds is a superb edition on the cricket.com app. Now, enough of me. Let's get to the guy in the suit with, of course, all the things that he has to say. What did day 2 make you happy the most about, Gurkirat? Was it Rohit Sharma's 120? Was it both our left-handed batsmen getting 50s? Talk to me, my friend.
Just while I was, on my way back home, and I was just thinking that, what I want to see one test match in India, on a pitch that has little spin and some pace, where India play all 4 of Ashwin, Akshar, Jadeja and Sundar. And the reason for that is not that, they can outbowl the opposition. The reason for that is that on such a pitch, they get into the heads of the opposition with their bowling. But what actually brings the slow death of the opposition is their batting. Because just when you feel that, maybe there's a chance for the opposition, like when KS Bharat was dismissed, India's lead wasn't too big. It was, there was a window of opportunity for Australia over there to try and get 3 or 4 quick wickets. Just like India got their last 4 wickets for 6 runs because Australia were 172 for 6 and they were bowled out for 177. From there on, when you see Akshar Patel come in and score a 50, it just, deficit, it completely takes away your morale. It deflates you completely, and you're left thinking that, okay, how am I now going to get the last 3 batters out? They just keep adding insult to that injury, and for a very long time, that has been the best part of watching test matches in India. Just when you feel that the opposition has a little chance with the ball, you have this lower order of 6, 7, 8, who just completely take the game away and change the match.
Next, let me come to you in terms of just talking about day 3, because it is a moving day and that's how they always kind of bill it, all these broadcasters. But India with 144 ahead, and like Gurkirat said right now, Akshar and Jadeja still there, and not just batting time, but batting really well. Can they now, I say 200, if that's possible, and bat Australia out and then really kind of make it like an innings defeat sort of thing? How do you think India's modus operandi will be going into day 3?
I think it should be something that we discuss same way like yesterday where we talked about, bat the whole day, bat into day 3. So now I'm not saying bat into day 4, but just bat as you want to, take your own time, because it's, as Gurkil also mentioned yesterday, important to get Australia to bowl a lot of overs as well. Keep batting, there is no hurry. You can bat, and the thing is, the pitch is still good to bat on. So why would you want to give Australia a chance to bat on a better batting condition? So just bat as much as you want, as deep as you want. It's already 144. You add 100 runs from here. Of course, it is wishful thinking that okay, you will add 100, but because after this it's Shami and Siraj, and it could end in 1 ball. But so that aside, any run that comes from them is obviously a bonus. So I want them to bat at least the first session out, and then see where you are. And then if you want to, go after the bowling, do that. But I'll still say bat a session, get, as you said, 200, 250. Then you have to also see how the pitch is doing. Even that can give you a clue that if it is still good, then also there is no hurry to bat. Bat aggressively. Just keep batting, and there is no hurry. It's just day 2.
It's just day 2 indeed. Gurkirat, from an Australian perspective, I know they've had some sort of fight back. At times they were getting wickets and stuff like that, but then that partnership of 81 deflated them, like you said. And then, of course, Steve Smith dropping the penultimate ball of Jadeja. That also is just adding salt into the wound. But what do they do, I mean, going forward in the series, let alone this test match? Because their bowling has looked, flat. Cummins has not been the Cummins. Lyon and, of course, Todd Murphy doing their bits. They bowled, I think, 73 overs already together. Boland was really good in his first 12 overs. I think he was under run a ball or something like that. Run an over. My question to you is, are they already thinking about the inevitable changes, such as Travis Head, such as an extra bowler? Because it's clear that India's all-rounders have made the biggest difference in this test match.
If they've started to think about the next test match already, then they've pretty much lost the test match right now. There's still a lot of time. This pitch is more than decent enough to bat. What should be in their minds is that how do we get the last three wickets as soon as possible, and then look to bat, because both Marnus and Smith batted well. And it's not that Carey couldn't score runs. Carey and Hanscom also showed that they could score some runs. Their only motive should be now to try and dismiss India under a lead of 175, because post 200, then it becomes, if India reach 200, it becomes a little difficult. And then they should look to bat as long as possible, because there's enough time left in the match. We talk about grinding the opposition down. The same thing is going to be applicable in case of India as well. If Australia bat long, what we have to realize is that when England won that series in 2012, they lost the first test match. But one thing that they did really well in the first test match that they lost was they batted extremely well in the second innings. Alistair Cook with that 100, and that partnership with Matt Pryor, because everyone thought that that test match would be over on day 4, but there was a huge partnership, and eventually that India did win that test match, but it ended on day 5. And
Yeah.
sometimes, even those performances which may not end in a win can give you that confidence. So what they should be looking at is, they should be they should be learning from the Indian batters who have done well, and try and see how can they score runs against the Indian bowlers, and how can they tire them down. If they're already thinking of the second test already, then it's a lost cause. They will, if they've started to think about the second test already, they will lose earlier than what any one of us would have thought. And as far as competing with Indian all-rounders is concerned, I don't think that at present they have that quality in their squad itself, that they can look at three players who can do the role of an Ashwin, Jadeja, or an Akshar. What they should be looking to do is probably play their best six batters, and then their best four bowlers, and amongst those six batters have one or two options who can come in and bowl tightly, just to give the other four a breather, because that is the best thing that they can do. If they are going to fill their team with all rounders and hope that maybe can a Travis Head or a Cameron Green do the same job what Jadeja or Akshar are doing, and then try and tweak their team that way, I'm not so sure it's going to work, because you can it's very difficult to try and replicate that quality which, or the performances that Jadeja and Ashwin and then even Akshar have mastered over the years. It's not
True.
that Jadeja became the all-rounder in the first test he played. He had his own struggles. Ashwin didn't become the kind of batter that he has in just one day. He's also had his troubles. Akshar actually had to wait a long time before he made his test debut. He grinded a lot in first class circuit, in first class cricket. So Australia should try and do what they know best, and then hope that it comes off.
Okay. Next, he said 200 is definitely out of their reach. Even 144 right now, potentially with Jadeja and Akshar. Say if they max to max restrict India to like 150, 160 is a lead, that means they still have to get in excess of 300 to defend something of 150. Do you think that can unravel the way that the host wanted to, or do you think that's wishful thinking, like you said?
They'll have to hope, Australia, of course, that they can do that. Only then will it be possible to emulate that on the field. But as Gurpreet said, it's the first three wickets first up. If they once it is going to be past 200, 220, then it will allow India to attack a lot more with the ball. And that will put a lot of pressure. And God forbid if they lose a wicket early in the first 2 overs, then it is just going to be a crowded place for all of the batters to follow. So that will make it really tough. But it's also where you'll want the likes of, Warner and Khoiser to just be themselves and back what you do and what you know best, because it's a long way off. I don't think you can look so far ahead immediately. So you have to go break it down into smaller bits and then go, okay, let's see of this session, 50 runs, see of this one, and then you go about it and see where you are and take it from there. So To begin with, India will look at 250. Australia will look at like 10 runs for 3 wickets.
Okay.
Just to say this, also it would be great if Indian fans don't become too overconfident, because this is nowhere near the pitch that Gaul was, where India lost after having a lead of 195, and you had Dinesh Chandimal play an innings out of nowhere. So this is still more than a decent enough batting pitch. If the batter can get in and apply themselves, there is no reason, if India have scored, say if India scored 350 runs in this innings, there is no reason why Australia also can't replicate that on the back of one or two good innings and probably a few cameos. So it's important that India also don't get complacent, and India also don't start to look too far ahead, because if India also start to look too far ahead, then there's a possibility of them slipping up as well with the ball. So it's very important to stay in the present, and like Nikhil said, take it session by session, or probably even break down the session into an hour by hour kind of a play, and then probably look at what's at hand. Because any team that has already started thinking of Delhi, they could really, Delhi abhi dur hai. Let's just put it that way. Delhi abhi dur hai. So whichever team starts to think about Delhi, they are going to make sure that they can end up having a very bad day tomorrow.
Okay, Gurkirat, good to see you as well. And Nick, we'll end with Gurkirat in terms of his thoughts on Rohit Sharma, because he's been the standout player on day 2 by a mile. And lots of people asking you that about Rohit Sharma and his performance against Todd Murphy in particular. So have your say, and then we'll wrap proceedings up. And Desi Judd also saying Kohli needs to find a new Bawa. I disagree with you, because the man's going to come back at some point in time. Gurkirat, the space is yours. Rohit Sharma, just sum up his innings, what you thought of it, and how he played Todd Murphy in particular, please.
Excellent innings, showed a lot of control, and even yesterday bided his time. And the most important thing was that he didn't get into a shell. At any opportunity when he thought that he could, attack the bowler and look for a boundary, he did that. Didn't really get into a shell. And the large part of his innings, he was under control. It didn't look like that he could get into trouble. When Boland was bowling well, he was biding his time, because he understood that the first session is important. Because if you think about it, Rohit pretty much scored the same amount of runs in 2 sessions today that he did yesterday. So that tells you about his maturity as a test batter. He's now started to understand, what is needed. It's not about his skill alone, because if it was only about his skill alone, then he was also very much capable of scoring 100 or maybe 70-80 runs in those 2 sessions. But because wickets were falling around him, he showed the kind of resolve and the maturity which is sometimes needed of a senior batter, which he has often been guilty of not showing early on in his test career and his career. But now he realizes that he needs to step up. And the important thing is he made that start count, because on these kind of pitches, uh, it can get really difficult for a new batter the first 30-35 odd balls, but once you've had a start, you need to make it count, and that's what he did.
Brilliant stuff from you and Nick's as ever. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for making your presence felt in this day 2 review of the first test in the Border Gavaskar Trophy. Definitely India's day, because they lead by 144, and who knows how much that lead can be. One thing is for sure, we're definitely going to see a moving day on day 3, and you guys can catch us same time, same place at 5:30 tomorrow. Nick's, Cookie, that we'll see you soon. And it's a goodbye to all you guys in the comments who've been sporting as ever. Better than Steve Smith's slip catch.